At nearly 90, Jeannie Seely is no longer staying silent. For decades, she was the heart of the Grand Ole Opry, a voice of tradition, grace, and fierce resilience. But behind the spotlight, behind the applause, she carried a secret so painful, so explosive, she vowed never to speak of it. That vow is now broken. A forgotten letter has come to light. A name long buried in the shadows has returned. And with it, the truth about betrayal, heartbreak, and the moment that nearly shattered her career forever. This isn't just about country music, it's about the untold story of a woman who gave everything, and nearly lost herself in the process. What really happened backstage during that mysterious power outage in 1971? Why did Jeannie Seely set fire to one of her own dresses in the parking lot that same night? And for over 5 decades, why did the Opry never speak a word about what she witnessed inside room 6B? The truth didn't just vanish, it buried itself in silence, haunting her every step since. But long before that chilling night, long before secrets, scandals, or flames, Jeannie Seely was just a steelworker's daughter with calloused fingers and a voice that didn't belong in the quiet hills of Pennsylvania. Her father pounded iron, her mother sang hymns while scrubbing floors. There were no bright lights, no Nashville scouts, just a dusty radio whispering country music through the static, and a teenage girl daring to believe she belonged in that world. At just 16, she sealed an envelope full of lyrics, addressed it to Music Row, and launched a journey that would take her straight into the spotlight, and eventually into a nightmare no one saw coming. No one wrote back, but she didn't quit. At just 21, Jeannie Seely packed a single suitcase, a half-used typewriter, and every ounce of grit she had, and headed south. By the time she crossed into Tennessee, she was almost out of money, but not out of fight. She scraped by on temp jobs, crashed on couches, wrote lyrics under streetlights, and sang in smoke-filled bars where no one even looked up, let alone clapped. Until one night, in a dusty dive on the edge of town, a man sitting in the shadows handed her a card. He'd just heard her perform a song that would change everything, "Don't Touch Me." And just like that, her voice was on the radio. The awards rolled in. So did the money. But respect? That was harder. Jeannie Seely didn't play by Nashville's old rules. She wore short skirts, eyeliner that made headlines, and a defiant grin. She cracked jokes on stage. And she refused to call any man sir unless he'd earned it. She didn't just enter the industry, she disrupted it. And worst of all, for the men in charge, she sang like she meant every damn word. Jeannie Seely's music wasn't soft sorrow, it was wildfire. Her songs burned with desire, defiance, guilt, power, and the kind of raw regret that made people uncomfortable. When she first stepped onto the Opry stage, the rules were made clear: no dancing, no deep cleavage, no talking back. She smiled politely, and broke every rule they handed her. Behind the scenes, the Opry's old guard didn't know what to do with her. She was too talented to silence, too bold to control. So they boxed her in, gave her the worst time slots, stuck her on stage with men who wouldn't even look her in the eye, and whispered behind her back just loud enough for her to hear. But she showed up. Every single night. And when they finally caved and added her to the official rotation, she didn't just perform, she made history, becoming the first woman ever to regularly host the Grand Ole Opry. But no one saw what it cost her behind the velvet curtain. Because that same year, her name was called for the first time. Room 6B. You didn't get invited, you were summoned. It was early 1971, and Jeannie Seely, now a rising star, was about to learn the price of standing out in a world built to keep women silent. That night marked the beginning of a private war, a battle between who they wanted her to be and who she truly was. And for the first time, she considered walking away from the stage, the spotlight, and everything she'd fought so hard to build. Half of the Opry House lost power because of a storm. The stage lights went on and off. Backup engines started to work. The crowd didn't pay any attention. Things changed behind the scenes, though. Someone on stage gave Jeannie a folded piece of paper. Just a room number and a time, no words. 6th floor, room 6B. It was something she had never heard of. It wasn't marked on the normal maps or hallway lists. There is no nameplate on the door down below, past the green rooms and outfit storage. There is only a brass knob and a faint hum behind it. The same as static or air. She opened it. One lamp, one chair, and a man inside. He did not say his name. He didn't need to. He was one of those quiet men who didn't show up in pictures but ran the Opry like it was their own church. He looked her over and over, but not because he was interested. Then he asked her a question that she has never said out loud. His message wasn't a request, so her answer didn't matter. It was a message. It was 11 minutes later when Jeannie walked out, pale and quiet. Her best dress was a blue sequin number with rhinestone trim. She went straight to the parking lot, took it off, and set it on fire. A cleaner saw the smoke and said she stood there and watched it burn like it was a person, but no one knew why. She never went back to stage wearing blue. Things changed after that night. The sets she played were cut down. In her greetings, she left out. There were rumors that she was hard to deal with. Someone pulled her from a Saturday show and put in a new male performer who forgot half of his lines. She came back, hosted, and smiled all the time. And she talked to that same man from room 6B in the hallway just once. He only spoke 5 words and then left. "Be careful, sweetheart. You're not safe from harm." She began writing letters and locking her changing room that night. She mailed some. She hid most of it in a box under her bed. Emails she wished no one would ever have to read. Up until now, they weren't journals. Those were not songs. And they weren't written to make people feel sorry for them. The records were written on onion skin paper with her old typewriter. It was always signed and dated. Each one showed a part of what she wasn't allowed to say out loud. The looks, the threats, and the stage sounds that changed for no clear reason. When her mic wasn't working. The night she walked out, there was quiet, and the curtain was left down on purpose. It was all written down by Jeannie Selly. She wrote letters to every name, insult, and slight, and kept them in a shoe box under her bed. The letters were wrapped in a worn red scarf that her mother gave her before she left Pennsylvania. The box wasn't open. She never told anyone, not even her husband, the code. It was like her safety plan. But it wasn't about getting back at him for her. The Opry's worst trick on its women was making them think nothing was real. That's why it was about proof. That they were just sensitive. They were too deeply involved in the matter. That only they were having trouble. Jeannie was smarter than that. She knew what they did to Dottie West before she died. She knew how they talked about Patty when they weren't together. That rude girl, that drunk kid, that trouble. She wasn't just writing for herself. She was writing down the plan. But she didn't mean for anyone to read the letters. Not until the fire. In 1991, her second home caught fire in the wee hours of the morning. Her bedroom went up quickly, but most of the house was saved. The shoe box made it through somehow. The scarf got melty in the heat, but the lock stayed put. On the inside, every single letter was still there. She opened the box for the first time in years that night while sitting on her porch in the ash. And the thing she read no longer felt like her life. It seemed like a story someone else had lived. Someone locked up, erased, or managed. She wasn't sad. She didn't scream. The only thing she said was, "I wasn't crazy." That night, she came up with a new plan. There was no need to burn or hide the letters. Instead, they were meant to be used at the right time. That time finally came when she turned 90. The knock came just after dark. Jeannie Seely was making her usual evening tea in her barefoot kitchen. She wasn't expecting any more guests at that point. Most people her age were either dead or had stopped calling for a long time. This knock, though, was different. Soft, uncertain, and almost religious. A young woman no more than 30 years old was standing at the door. She was worried and staring wide-eyed, holding a folder to her chest as if it were going to fall off. When she met people, she only used her first name. She said she was writing a thesis for graduate school about women who have been lost in country music. She had driven 6 hours just to get to see Jeannie for 5 minutes. Jeannie was about to send her away when the woman said, "Room 6B." Everything stopped. That room was hidden from everyone. Not unless they were there. Not unless someone called them. They shouldn't have done that unless they had something to lose. This girl, on the other hand, had something to give and nothing to lose. The woman reached into the box and took out a copy. It was one of the letters, not a copy, it was a picture from June 15, 1971. There was a full report of her second visit to room 6B, complete with names, threats, the handshake deal she had to accept, and the line that sealed the deal. "I will be taken off the stage before I finish my next line if I talk about this again." Jeannie felt very cold. She asked the girl where she got it. That's when the story became clear. This letter was found in a backroom closet in the Opry's archival building that is not open to the public. It was mixed up with a stack of stage diagrams. Someone who used to work there put it there, probably without permission. He might have meant to give it back. He might have meant to leak it. But there it was, carefully kept and ready to go. The girl found it while looking into how floors are laid out. Before she knew what it was, she said she read it 3 times. She copied it and then put the seal back on it. Jeannie asked her why she brought it to her. "Because I think they've done this to other people and I think they'll do it again," the girl said after a pause. Jeannie didn't sleep that night. She took out the old shoe box and read each letter again. That's when she realized the 60 years of silence were about to end. Talk had always been going around about doors that didn't show up on any blueprints, tapes that disappeared from the sound booth, and members of the opera who left after asking the wrong questions. There was also a hallway that went behind the oldest part of the building. It was short and had no windows. Service wing was what they called it. While tour guides skipped it completely, people who lived there knew that this was where the real decisions were made. Men in tailored suits and smoky voices met behind closed doors to change jobs like pages in a script. Only twice in her life had Jeannie walked down that hall. Room 6B was the last one both times. But a week later, when the young researcher came back with floor plans, records, and a notebook full of hand-drawn maps, she told Jeannie something she hadn't planned to hear. There is no longer a room 6B. New architectural plans show that the room was closed off in the late 1990s. There was no permit or renovation notes, just a blank spot where a door used to be, as if it had never been there. Still, it had. Jeannie could still remember the design on the rug, the sound of the old radiator, and the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a boot print. Someone wanted everyone to think she was dreaming even though she wasn't. That night, she took out a photo book and looked at a picture from 1974 that was taken backstage. Not very clear, in the far left corner, were a metal door knob and a plaque. 6B. She sent the young woman a copy of that picture in the mail with a note. "Should something bad happen, you should tell them I did my best to be honest." The eraser wasn't just for the room. It was about everything that took place inside. The deals, the quiet, and the imbalance of power that were never said out loud but were known through looks and locked doors. Jeannie had never thought of herself as brave. She thought she was smart, careful, and living. But Jeannie knew that the shine had come at a price as the Opry kept honoring its gentleman pioneers and enjoying its polished history. And the old secrets were still alive and waiting somewhere under all the new walls and shiny logos. When Jeannie Seely was in her late 80s, most of the women who had walked those rooms with her were no longer there. A lot of people died without a fuss, others became obscure, and too many left nothing but questions. People said that Doy West's car accident was a tragedy. That was months ago, though, Jeannie remembered. There had been cancelled shows, strange phone calls, and Doy had started to say things on stage that she never did before. People also looked twice at Loretta Lynn's strokes and strange last talks. "They don't want us around when we talk too much," she told Jeannie one time. Then Naomi Judd showed up. She was gone under a dark cloud, and rumors were going around about what she had found in her last few months. They all had stories. They were all scarred. At one point, they were all told to just trust the oyster. It looked like this, Jeannie saw. Women were pushed out, changed, or lowered. If they got too old, they were forgotten. They were not stable if they pushed back. If they stayed too long, the business world knew how to tighten the noose without leaving a mark. She remembered how quickly Patty Clean was called tough when she started to question management. Sker Davis was kicked off the Opry for 10 years after she spoke out against the church's control over the business. Jeannie never forgot that she still had the blue-spaced letter Sker sent her from Kentucky. "They don't mind what I said. They don't like that I said it where people could hear it." Jeannie kept a new kind of list in her quiet little house on the edge of Nashville. It wasn't just a list of names, it was a list of themes. Who vanished when, who stopped getting calls, who retired after one too many unanswered questions. The saddest part, there was never a right send-off. No tribute, no curtain call, just a gentle erasing, as though they had in no way been center stage, as though the applause had in no way took place. But, their voices nonetheless echoed within the cracks of the vintage floorboards, in the odor of the dressing room powder, in Jeannie's memory. It truly is whilst she knew the reality couldn't live locked away any further. Due to the fact if she stayed silent, they had erased her, too. Jeannie Seely in no way thought she'd outlive all of them. She did not drink much, never smoked beyond her 30s, but she by no means lived cautiously either. She sang tough, loved harder, and saved showing up night after night time. Even if the status ovations changed into polite nods, even when the dressing room moved farther from the primary corridor, even if the phone stopped ringing after the vacations, but she was nonetheless here. At 90, she moved a touch slower, wished help with the zipper on her degree robes, however her thoughts sharp as ever. She remembered dates, names, who looked her in the attention and who didn't. And while a brand new generation of ladies entered the Opry, young, hopeful, unaware, she watched them with an unusual blend of delight and dread, because she knew what the region may want to do to you. And now she knew she could not protect them by way of staying quiet. So she started to talk quietly in the beginning, a conversation at a tribute show, a quote in a nearby interview, tips, reminiscences, warnings. Then got here the memoir, quietly self-published, barely promoted, but risky all of the equal. Inside have been portions of the letters, redacted names, footnotes, disguised truths. Enough to make humans uncomfortable. Sufficient to make a few calls forestall coming. Enough to get a midnight knock on her door from a former Opry tech who just stated, "I study it and I consider each phrase." There were no court cases, no angry press meetings, simply silence, which to G stated greater than phrases ever could. Within the months that followed, something peculiar happened. A new Opry policy surpassed, one which protected on-web page performers and group of workers from undue behind-the-scenes have an effect on. A few producers quietly stepped down. A handful of young women reached out privately to thank her. And one night, as she stood in the wings, cane in hand, waiting to head on level for what might be the closing time, a younger singer brushed past her, turned and whispered, "Thanks for not letting them bury you." Jeannie smiled due to the fact she knew now legacy is not built on what they assist you to say. It is constructed on what you assert besides. The grand vintage Opry level has seen all of it. Growing stars, final performances, status ovations, and surprising exits. However, it has by no means visible some other Jeannie Seely. She didn't depart with a bang. She failed to ask for a tribute. She just stopped showing up sooner or later. No farewell unique, no gold watch, simply an empty stool and a silence that felt heavier than regular. However, something had changed. Her memoir, as soon as left out, commenced circulating quietly among more youthful artists. Copies shared behind the scenes, pages dog-eared and highlighted. A brand new era began to invite quiet questions. And in hallways lengthy thought to be soundproof, whispers again. And at the coronary heart of all of it become Jeannie's final act. She donated the shoe field. Each letter, each name, each date positioned into the fingers of a rustic track archive outdoor of Opry manage, sealed for public release, unless something occurred to her. That became the deal. The minute someone attempted to erase her, the lid could come off. The Opry hasn't touched her legacy for the reason that these days, she sits on her porch just outside Nashville. Her bones pain. Her voice is not what it become, but the fire's still in her eyes. While asked in an extraordinary interview what she'd say to the Opry now, she most effective shrugged and said, "I gave you my first-class years. You gave me your guidelines. I outlived them." There are still pictures of her hanging in the behind-the-scenes hall. No one dares take them down. Due to the fact the reality is, she's now not only a survivor of the Opry's golden age. She's its witness, the keeper of secrets and techniques. The female who refused to be silenced. And regardless of what number of renovations they do, how many press releases they write, or how many curtain calls they choreograph, there'll usually be a music echoing in the rafters they can't manipulate. A song written in memory, in pain, in legacy. The one Jeannie Seely never stopped singing, even when nobody else dared hum along.